What's up, guys? It's National Master Gem Apples here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a recent candidates tournament game played just yesterday. This is the game between Gujrathi and Ali Reza Firouza, and I found this game to be really interesting, and I hope you do as well. The game starts out with e4, e5, knight f3, d6, and the opening isn't important. We just have a normal Sicilian defense, but not a normal one, actually. A lot of people here play a6 going into the knight orf, but knight c6 is kind of a rare line nowadays, aiming for a classical Sicilian, or depending on what white does, maybe even a Sveshnikov. But the classical Sicilian doesn't really have the best reputation for black. And yeah, we'll be seeing what Vidit plays against this. So bishop c4. This is one of the main lines against this. And queen b6. This is, again, one of the main moves. The other main move, I believe, is pawn to e6. But these moves are kind of interchangeable. So knight b3 and e6. Again, the knight was being attacked. White does not really want to take here, because after black takes back, he has the open b file, which he can use to pressure. And he has, like, I don't know, this interesting central grip, which can be unpleasant for white to deal with. So knight b3, pawn to e6, bishop to f4, attacking the pawn, and Ali Reza does not hang the pawn. However, in my mere Lichess database, I cannot find a single master game from this position, which is really fascinating. Either Ali Reza, and if you look at this, right, if you look at the time here, he was at an hour 57 minutes and 56 seconds, and then goes down to an hour 57 minutes and 16 seconds, showing that he only used 40 seconds of his time. Means that he was definitely in preparation, even if there was like an increment of like half a minute or something like that. You know, he definitely was in preparation. This is a novelty, honestly. Like, as far as I'm aware, this is a really strange move. And the main move here is, I believe, is knight to e5, blocking the path of the bishop and attacking the opposing bishop. Main line, I believe, then goes bishop e3. There's also bishop b5 check, and things get interesting. I've played this myself a couple times with black, but Ali Reza's queen d8 is something to be looked at. And so we have queen to d2. Again, white's just playing really normal chess, you know? He's going to castle, and he's going to say, I have a ton of development. Where's your development? Like, all your pieces are on the back rank. And this is kind of how you play the Sicilian sometimes, right? You just turtle off and push all your pawns, attack on the queen side, and hope that you win with zero development. It's really a fascinating opening. Pawn to a6 is played, preparing pawn to b5, which is a huge thing in most Sicilians. Black will then try to bring his rook to c8 after bringing his bishop to d7. Usually in the classical Sicilian, sometimes to b7, and he's just going to try to hammer the opponent on the queen side. a3 is played. White did not want b5 followed by b4 to hit. So, like, if white were to delete that all and say castle king side, which is not the greatest move, black could go pawn to b5, and after, like, white goes bishop to e2, black would be able to go b4, and in some cases snatch this pawn. Now, this is of course fine for white because he's got so much development, but at the same time, this is something you really don't want to allow the opponent to do, especially like later on in the game. So, Vidit plays pawn to a3, preventing pawn to b4, like if b5, b4 is played. Another thing to note here is that he could have played a4, and this is the computer's choice, but sometimes it's hard for a human to make a move like this, especially when you weaken the b4 square so much. Nevertheless, it does have its advantages of nipping just nipping b5 in the bud and playing a5 in the future. Anyways, a3 is played b5, bishop b2, and now bishop b7. And there is a really deep reason why this is a bad move, actually, and it's really hard to explain. But I'll do my best. So the main point of this is that black's usual setup goes bishop e7 and knight e5. And there's a reason why this happens, and we'll see this later on in the game. When you play bishop b7, you actually cannot, and castles, which is like the most logical move. There is a reason why you can't play knight to e5, and it's so deep. I had to look into this. The reason is because knight takes b5, right? And you might say, okay, so what? I take you. Well, no, I take your knight, and you take me, and I take you. Check, right? You're not blocking because you're just losing your piece. King e7, and now queen b4. And not only are you losing your queen, but you're just getting checkmated after queen to d6, queen takes d6, checkmate. So you might say, okay, well, black doesn't have to take your knight, right? He can take this pawn attacking your queen. But after queen b4, which is honestly a pretty nasty move, white threatens various ideas with knight takes d6, knight takes d6, followed by bishop takes e5, winning up another pawn, so black will take the piece. White will take this piece, and yeah, bishop c6 is forced. You can't really take back here, because again, the same bishop takes b5 resource. And the game is over. So bishop c6, and now bishop b5, and now white's in a really good spot. So why is this bad? Well, the thing is, the bishop on b7 allows a plethora of tactical opportunities for white to go queen b4, and like bishop b5, and knight b5, and all this kind of stuff, you know? There's all sorts of tactics on the bishop once the queen gets to b4, or eventually like b5, and this is just a huge tactical mess. The fact that black can't go knight e5 really messes him up here, because now black had to spend a move on queen to b6, protecting his bishop and this pawn. And so this is why it's much better in positions like these to delay moves like bishop b7. A lot of times in the Richter-Rouser, which this is not, but it's a similar position sometimes, the bishop goes to d7. And in this case, castles and knight e5, and black is perfectly fine, right? He wants to delay this. Maybe he wants to castle, getting rid of all these nasty threats before he goes bishop b7. But the way Ali Reza plays it, he is forced to go something like queen b6 to protect his stuff. And now we see the problem, right? By not going bishop e7 and knight e5, now Vidit strikes with pawn to g4. Why is pawn to g4 such a good move? Okay, let's first talk about why knight on e4 would have prevented this. That's just a free pawn, okay? 2 attackers, 1 defender. But again, as we saw, he can't go knight e5 because of a crazy tactic. So pawn g4 is played, threatening nasty things with pawn g5, gaining a ton of space, probably bishop e3, and some kind of pawn storm next is coming. Say, if black does nothing, what's a good nothing move? I'd say rook c8 looks like a logical nothing move. Pawn g4, pawn g5, knight moves, and now, well, you're losing your pawn, first of all. But, second of all, okay, we'll take a look at why you can't really take this pawn. It looks free, but at the same time, once black castles, you are in some trouble here. So, in hindsight, after pawn to g4, maybe rook to d8 is a better nothing move. But after pawn to g5, something like this, black's in big trouble. And pawn g5, knight d7 is what the computer wants, but as I said, after something like bishop e3, white's going to storm all his pawns, and this is bad news for black, honestly. In fact, computer is even liking this more. But the point still stands, black should not have let the pawn onto g4, because white has all sorts of kingside attacking possibilities. So bishop b7 castles, queen b6, g4, and now Ali Reza makes the mistake of the century. Queen takes f2. Why is this a bad move? Well, Ali Reza's got a really fighting style, right? He likes to grab pawns, he likes to be aggressive, and he likes to take the fight to the opponent. But this is just the wrong way to do it. Reminds me of the game where I trapped my queen in the National High School Championships just this week, and that did not feel good. I still drew the game, but whatever. Pawn to e5 is played. So the reason why queen takes f2 is so bad is because, I don't know, you just get your queen in a really awkward spot, and Vidit punishes this immediately with pawn to e5. It's such a good move. Let's take a look at black's options here, right? So the knight is attacked. You got to do something about it. Knight d7 was played in the game. You can't really take this pawn back with your pawn attacking white's bishop because your queen actually gets trapped. Rook dg1 and rook g3, and bye-bye to the queen. There aren't really any other options, by the way. The reason why you can't trap the queen right away is because although this is not a bad move, um, after queen h4, right, you don't have the same threats as you did before. Whereas after pawn e5, um, and say d takes e5, bishop e3, queen h4 is no longer good because of bishop to g5. And you might say, oh, he goes back. Well, not really. Here, there's a difference with the bishop on g5. There's this really insanely nasty move, knight to e4. And we can see here that, yeah, black is in doo-doo because queen and knight are attacked, and he can't really take here because of checkmate. So just a really deep thing here, right? The reason why black can't take is because he opens up the d file. That's all. Pawn to e5. The other option is knight takes pawn, right? But this fails spectacularly to bishop takes b5, hitting the queen on f2. And so from this point, the game is essentially over. Knight d7 was played, but after pawn takes d6, this pawn is just way too strong. It's passed, it's protected, and black just has to work around it. So queen b6, trying to not lose the queen. Bishop b3 was played, attacking the queen, and it doesn't really matter because look at black's pieces. Now the position is open, right? The Sicilian relies on everything being closed up and the c file being open. But now all his pieces are on the back rank and the position is opened up. This was a poison pawn on f2, and now the f file is opened up as well, and white has a huge pawn on d6. White's not even down material. Knight e5 is played. This is probably black's best attempt. He's trying to get into c4 and create counterplay. So white still has to be careful here. Knight c4 followed by rook c8 could possibly be something, but it's really nothing. Queen to d4 is played. Engine also likes knight to c5 as well as bishop to g5. Queen d4 though, rook c8, and now this move I don't really understand, but the engine really likes it, or not really likes it. It's fine with it. Queen to a7, just getting in, but it's more the next continuation. Bishop c6 is played. Apparently, a rook takes c3 is the engine's choice. After takes, queen to a8. But I don't really see someone doing this, sacrificing the exchange to damage pawn structure and then offering a queen exchange seems really unnatural since you want to keep your queen on the board. Rook c8, queen a7, and now bishop c6, hanging the pawn on a6, so white just scoops this up. Rook a8, and now this really unnatural but only move, bishop to a7, obscuring the rook from the attack. It looks like white's pieces are really clumsy and uncoordinated when I first saw this, but turns out this is perfectly fine. And that's what I first thought of as well, but the thing is the pawn on b5 is going to be taken, and when it takes back, the knight will take, and all of a sudden everything is protected, and black is the one who has to worry about things. g6, just trying to develop. I mean, this pawn is a real thorn. It controls e7, so yeah, black has to develop out this way. Bishop takes pawn. Now Vidit is up 2 pawns, and the game is essentially over. Takes. Black finally manages to castle, but not after knight c7 hits. Now, Alireza plays knight takes g4, probably just trying to get some counterplay, but in the process he loses his rook. He didn't have to lose his rook, but after rook c8, queen e2, protecting this pawn. As I said, Alireza is a fighter. He's not going down without a fight, right? And this is kind of a whimper because black is down 2 pawns, and yeah, white's just going to advance his pawns, trade this off, push his d-pawn, and win the game really easily. So, practically speaking, this was a really nice move, just trying to gain some sort of counterplay. Knight takes rook, queen takes, queen e2 still. A really nice move, double attack on the knight. And so, if takes, then he will take the knight. Takes the knight, that's what happens. You can't fork, that's not a fork, that's just called a free knight. Queen takes a7, takes, bishop g7, trying to get something on the long diagonal. Unfortunately for Alireza, it's already +5 and climbing. This is a really, really bad situation. I don't know how to explain it. White's just got 4 connected, protected passed pawns that are going to be marching up the board anytime now. Queen c7, trying to exchange queens. Rook b4, this is slaughter. The rook is getting in now. And not much more to say. He attacks the queen, defends his pawn. Alireza is threatening checkmate. I think that Vidit is strong enough to see that. Blocks with his rook. Knight f6, queen c5, trying to exchange queens. Always, well, not always, but most of the time when you're up material, try to exchange queens. King a2, I don't know, just a really safe move. He doesn't want to He didn't want to fall for like any sort of traps, trades with c4 and queen f5 check. Right, he wants to trade queens, but he doesn't want to like give black a free check to do so. So he just goes king a2, just avoiding all the checks, preparing c4 next move. To exchange queens, but Alireza doesn't want to. c3 is played, blunting any sort of checkmate so that white's rook can move. Both of white's rooks can move, I guess. Bishop h6. Alireza's fighting hard, but it's not enough. Takes, and now, yeah, it's pretty clear that white's 4-on-0 majority is going to take the cake. d7 and knight d4, threatening knight c6 next. With no way to stop this, Alireza resigned the game, and Vidit won this amazing game. I mean, honestly, a very strange novelty by queen d8 by Alireza. I've never seen this move, and I just think that the computer doesn't think it's bad, so it can't be a bad move. But the way he handled it after b5 and bishop b7 was just not the way to go. Like, I mean, yeah, the only plan here is bishop e7, knight e5 to prevent g4. But the way he played it, right, he was forced into going queen b6. And after g4, right, black is much worse, but then Alireza decided to do something interesting, take this pawn on f2, and Vidit just was able to shut everything down, get an imposing pawn, and win the game. So I hope you enjoyed this video recap. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed.